It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
That just made me sad reminiscing about seeing the
now
Sonics.
your mood's going to change.
Well, I've
just
watched,
reminded you of a very painful memory from your youth.
watching the Sonics play in that building and then walking there for my high school graduation and then having it all ripped from me. The Sonics are gone, but
So sorry.
you know what's cool though is the Kraken play there now. So it's at least they're keeping the building going. It's all awesome. By the way, the cut brought to you this hour by Trajan Wealth. TrajanWealth.com, your trusted local needs in retirement with a financial fiduciary. Just go to their website, TrajanWealth.com. Bill Bender joins us on the program as he does periodically. We love having him on. College football writer for the Sporting News. Bill, when it all shook out, what were your thoughts on the college football playoff?
I mean, I don't have my take isn't all that popular. I think it's absurd that Notre Dame's not in. I mean, when I was doing our final college football playoff projection on Saturday evening, I mean, my debate in my head wasn't Notre Dame and either one of those schools. It was Notre Dame or it was Alabama and Miami. You know, they can't justify putting Notre Dame, Miami back to back and saying this is why we put Miami, because you had Notre Dame ahead of them the whole month. The committee boxed themselves into a corner. And quite frankly, Alabama didn't look like a team that was a playoff team. And I know they went to a conference championship game, but you don't get extra credit for failing the test.
No doubt. And now everyone's speculating, well, the ESPN and the SEC, there's business interest in this, right? Why did Alabama not drop a spot when they lost a championship game? BYU dropped a spot for losing to Texas Tech. What's really the difference here? How much of that do you buy into?
Not the network part of it. I don't think the TV networks they might campaign on TV a little bit, but I don't think they influence the decision in the room. You know, I think it's fairly obvious that ESPN has some campaigning for the SEC, much like Fox campaigns for the Big Ten and Big 12 a little bit. And, you know, one thing that I think Notre Dame had an absolute right to be upset about was the running the game for 48 straight hours. I don't think the Big Ten Network would ever do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was last year. It was it was a coup that it was only 3 SEC teams in now, and then you get 5 from the SEC, and around here everybody felt like BYU got ripped off, and they loved putting up the metrics, and I was like, stop putting the metrics up because they obviously don't lean on those like they do a net rating, for example, in the NCAA tournament. Like, we need to stop trying to pretend like they were really living off of those things.
Sometimes they kept BYU out of those graphics, and they finally put them in there like, wait a minute, their numbers are better than Miami's.
What were your thoughts on BYU at the very end?
Well, I mean, you know, they faced an uphill battle too. I mean, they obviously got routed by Texas Tech, and you know, it was an interesting stat this week. I got to give my editor credit for this when we were on a pod, and there's only one team in the country that's won 10 or more games in the regular season each of the last 2 years and been left out of the playoff, and it's BYU. I found that a very interesting stat. So if anybody should be complaining about this process and how it works and how the regular season value changes and playing in a conference championship game this week, it's probably the BYU Cougars.
Yeah, and I think they're frustrated, but they haven't handled it the same way as Notre Dame. Now, I agree with you. I think the way they handled Notre Dame was strange, and I do believe that they kind of got screwed there. But what do you think about the way Notre Dame has handled their business since opting out of the bowl game, basically throwing a tantrum? Does that rub you wrong, or do you think that they're justified in the way they've been handling the situation after the fact?
I don't mind it, but it has to have a purpose. So if they don't want to play, I'm going to give you a very bad non-answer here. So, or at least a political one. I get what they're doing. Like, hey, you can have your Pop-Tarts Bowl, whatever. We'll sit this one out, and it's kind of like an informal, formal protest of sorts, and saying, you know, we're not going to play on ESPN, and that's part of it. There are kids that probably wanted to put the pads on one more time. It does disregard them, or maybe they're not. Maybe some of those guys were like, yeah, we're not doing that. But that's also part of it. It is putting some disrespect toward the bowl system. I don't know if they've handled that the right way, but there are other teams sitting out the bowl season as well. I just think here is my thought on the entire thing. I wish they would have left Alabama out so we could have had a broader, better discussion about the value of conference championship games and how we're going to do this and whether we should do them, because now we have license to continue these conference championship games. And I think every season we have them, it's going to create this little, well, do we really have the best teams in? And I don't want to hear that Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference argument when you crown a 5-loss conference champion like the ACC did last weekend.
Right.
Yeah. Well, at least they had a safety net to make sure that those 7 and 5 teams can't play in the college football playoff. But
it does create a massive
the
problem,
ACC's
guys.
Got to figure it out, man. They got to figure that thing out.
By these teams playing in a conference championship game, it's another opportunity to lose a game, which hurts your resume. If BYU hadn't played in and lost the Big 12 championship game at 11-1, do they keep them out? I mean, what are teams' incentives? What are their incentives, Bill, for playing in these games if it's only if there's a 50-50 chance it's going to hurt them?
Or if it's only going to benefit the SEC.
Right.
I mean, let's cut to it, right? It doesn't benefit the Big 12 loser. It hasn't benefited the Big 12 loser each of the last 2 years. It's not going to the Big 10, I don't think it'll ever – there'll probably be a year where it does, but I think in most cases the Big Ten championship game is as entertaining and fun as that was. Both of those teams are going to the playoff most years.
Right.
Just because of the way the conference is situated with the imbalanced schedules. And that leaves the ACC, which we saw what happens when you have disaster hour with tiebreakers. So all of those things are in question. I'm one of those guys, and I don't know if I've said it on your show, and bear with me if I have. I don't need them. I could do 16 teams, no automatic berths. Let's just play it right. Let's start maybe next weekend. We'll give them a week off, play the first 2 rounds on campus, and go from there.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of all shocked here when Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, came out and said, I love the 5+11 model. And we were like, okay. I don't think that was the right move because it still puts too many decisions in, like the at-large 11.
The less the committee's involved, the better.
It's just the at-large 11 is tough, and so that's going to be a weird thing. Hey, I mean, the details have gotten more and more weird as this Sherrone Moore firing at Michigan has kind of taken shape, and it sounds like it's just a massively. I mean, it's a very complicated situation. We do know that he's not going to be the coach there. He was fired for cause. From the actual football standpoint, how on earth does Michigan approach this? Who would even be available at this point that would be the caliber of a coach that could go to Michigan right now during maybe the worst time to try to hire a person?
Well, exactly. Well, I'll start on the Sherrone thing. I don't want to speculate. You know, when you hear the phrase inappropriate relationship and everything that's resulted from that, it's an ugly situation. And I'm honestly glad it's not more serious and more people weren't hurt, you know what I mean, than what happened. So, you know, the thoughts with the families there. Football-wise, here's the thing. I think the name that you're hearing over and over again is Kalen DeBoer, which here we go again. It's like Lane Kiffin Part 2. No. What if – I think there should be interest. I think that when Harbaugh left 2 years ago, Kalen DeBoer was the best fit for the job then. They tried to continue the Harbaugh era with Sherrone, backfired. They need to make a clean break from that. They can't hire Jesse Minter. They've got to hire somebody. You know, the 2 names that will be the most popular and I think are best fits are Kalen DeBoer and Brian Kelly, believe it or not. Brian Kelly knows he's coached, even if it's not a great hire, he's coached at 2 major programs where they have the expectations that they do, like Michigan does. So, and he's won 10 or more games a lot of times. So maybe he's the guy. If they can't get those 2, I think they would look at a Jed Fish at Washington, who coached at Michigan. I think they would look at, I mean, like you said, because we're so late in the cycle, that could mean Dan Mullen. A guy like Dan Mullen, if he wants to coach in the Big Ten. He's done a very nice job at UNLV in his first season, and I just can't picture him coaching at UNLV forever.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can. That was kind of a bounce back, right?
Well,
it's crazy. You're right. There's not like that slam dunk name out there, unless they can go get Kalen DeBoer and pry him away. DeBoer be that unhappy at Alabama with the pressure and the expectations that he's been having to deal with there the last 2 years following a legend? I don't know.
Well, we'll find out maybe after Friday night next week.
There you go.
If they get hammered at Oklahoma. I mean, they were ready to fire him after the Florida State game. That was very real.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe not the people that actually make those decisions from what I've heard, but the fans wanted him gone. We've seen all the clips. And then their season reversed on the Georgia game and now kind of reversed back a little bit because they have not looked good in their last 3 to 4 games. So, maybe that's the clean break for Kalen DeBoer if he wants it. It would have to start with him wanting interest. And could you imagine if during the playoff Alabama loses and then they have a coach leave while we're trying to watch the playoff?
My goodness.
It would be a wild scene. But I'm not the only one putting that name out there. So that means that would be something that they would do. And I did see, it's worth noting that Ross Dellinger reported a little bit ago that it sounds like, that Michigan's not going to fire Ward Manuel, that he will be the athletic director. He'll help lead this coaching search. And, I'll say this about Ward, whatever you want to criticize him now, he did make the right men's basketball hire because Dusty May's crushing it.
They're
no
going.
Doubt. No doubt.
Yeah,
that guy got to a Final Four with a team that never been there for a reason. He's a good coach.
Bill Bender joining us from Sporting News. The news that hit us, obviously pretty close to home because the University of Utah made the decision that they did with their private equity deal, expected to generate or infuse the program with up to $500 million. We all tried to wrap our head around it. The consensus was, despite the fact that no one knows actually how it's going to work going forward, it's either the worst thing on the planet or it's the best thing. How do you see it?
Well, we'll see. Honestly, I don't know enough. This could go either way with private equity deals and programs. So I hate to, again, give you kind of a non-answer there. But, it's a big money game, and you got to spend to make money. And, the program in your conference, and I was down at the Nagurski Award on Monday and around Jacob Rodriguez a little bit. There's no question. They're wearing that, you could go both ways with it. You could say, well, Texas Tech bought this team. Well, kind of the game right now. Ohio State had that $35 or $40 million price tag dragged around its name all year last year, and it's fine. There's not one person in Columbus that's talked about it since because they won the national championship.
You wrote about the Heisman Trophy finalists and the pros and cons of each. It's an interesting field. There's not that superstar, that sure thing where, we've had the last few years with incredible quarterback play or the unicorn Travis Hunter, and even that last year could have been debated. How do you view this race, and what are the pros and cons for each 4 of those guys?
Well, I think, Mendoza and Pavia will probably, I voted, and I'm not allowed to say who I voted for, but, we can break it down. They'll probably be the top 2. I think Mendoza had the best collection of Heisman moments. He really did. Not a lot of 300-yard games, just one. Pavia led these guys in total offense. Electric player, 10 wins, had those 2 losses, but he's the heart. If you're talking about most valuable player to his team, he's probably that guy.
Yeah.
I think Julian's saying he's going to have a hard time winning it because of the recency bias of last weekend, but he's the same guy who was really good at the Michigan game that I was at the week before. And then Jeremiah Love's probably the best football player of the 4 of them. An outstanding running back at Notre Dame, played well in the big games. Had that slow start, though. Against Texas A&M and Miami, and it's just hard for running backs to win the Heisman Trophy anymore. So I think it'll be either Mendoza or Pavia. The betting odds say Mendoza by a lot, but I guess I'm wondering what that vote actually looks like.
Yeah, JJ's a voter too, so you guys are both way lame not releasing your stuff over the air. I know it'd get you in trouble, but look at you guys, big timing me over here. We got to watch this thing.
Men of integrity, Alex. Don't tempt us. Don't tempt us.
No, but was it I don't know what this looks like. Every year is different. And people generally are saying that this is a weak Heisman class. I don't know if there's such a thing in the 2025 college football. These guys are freaking good.
Yeah, it's a fun class. I'm a little bit surprised Rodriguez didn't get invited too. The Texas Tech. Look at all these defensive awards he's reeling in over the last
got an email.
week.
He finished 5th.
So why not invite them at that point?
Agree.
Yeah, like
because what did they do? They invited 4. Is that what they did?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he deserved that. He was a fantastic player. Heart of that defense. It gives the Big 12 a guy there too. Like there would have been no harm in doing that. I got some time around his family while I was down in Charlotte Monday, and his father Joe and mother Ann are like, seriously, I'm not exaggerating, the nicest people in the world. And you want to root for kids like that. And, he obviously was a big piece of that nasty Texas Tech defense. And as you guys saw on the TV, man, they had a lot of people at that Big 12 championship
they showed
game.
up.
So
they did.
They did, and it makes it – here's the game that I am most interested in this entire college football playoff bracket is I do think Oregon-Texas Tech would be just a fun watch.
Agree.
If Texas Tech could beat them, and that Oregon team's being undervalued a little bit with Dan Lanning. So that's going to be a fun matchup.
Yeah, it is an intrigue. There are intriguing matchups, and then we said the same thing about intriguing matchups last year, and there were so many dadgum blowouts. Like, in the end, it's like, we can't get this thing perfect, and I know it's an imperfect system, but, it's unfortunate when you get to this, we start chatting so much about what these games are going to break down to, and I just want these to be competitive games. I don't want to have the blowouts that we've seen in some of these front end of the – and maybe Tulane and JMU are so far out of their league that those are going to be the blowouts. But, you want the teams that everybody – and, watch Alabama win 2 games because that's just the way this thing works. And it's just, it's crazy like that.
Well,
so.
You bring up an interesting point because, again, the pushback I'm getting from my buddies, and I have buddies in like Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, and they're like, well, why are there 2 Group of 5 teams in? I said, well, read the playoff first, guys. And then now, but the idea that James Madison and Tulane are in there, and I think they're on the spot in a different way. Like, they don't have to win, but they have to compete in these games.
Yeah,
otherwise, that's going to be what everybody sits around and says. Why is Tulane in this game? We already watched them lose by 35. Their coach isn't even going to be there. Why is James Madison in this game? It's a Sun Belt team. How are they playing Oregon when we could be watching like Texas and Oregon? So I do think they're on the spot because that'll be a larger question about should 5 teams be in, and it's maybe not necessarily fair to them because you want to have the entire enterprise work, but you guys know that's what we do. That's what we did all the first round last year. We complained about these blowouts.
Yeah, well, I think that if we could dip into the future 50 years, I don't think that we're gonna go into the future and in 50 years they'll be like, and finally when the system became perfect back in 2035. Like, that's not going to happen. There's going to be complaints every year. I mean, that's basketball, right? And so there's going to be stuff every year that's going to be imperfect, but we just hope for the best matchup. So, Bill Bender, college football writer for Sporting News. Thanks for joining us, Bill. We always appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great weekend.
You too,
appreciate
Bill.
it.
There you go.